I was a musician when I was younger, but I wasn't the cool, like, coffee type, open mic teenager. I was a flute player, which is the very least cool instrument, the instrument that is forever twiddling away in the upper registers like an anxious bird, desperate for attention from the rest of the orchestra. Yes, flutes, we hear you. We hear how high that you can play. It wasn't our fault that the composers wrote us that way, but the stigma got transferred to our personalities. Like all flute players were high-maintenance, vapid girls. Not like the oboe players who were granted the dignified responsibility of tuning the group, or the saxophonists who played hacky sack during breaks and knew how to smoke pot at 14. When I was 16, I got packed away and sent to Rochester to play in an all-state band. The process for selection for the all-state band goes like this. Once a year, you would perform a solo with an accompanist in front of a judge, who would then score you out of 100. You were judged on technical ability, but also posture and elusive things like interpretation and stage presence. Flute playing was so competitive that if you were marked down by even 1/2 of 1 point on that single performance, even on stage presence, your prospects for the year were done. No all-state, no all-county, just your high school band room with no windows and weird-smelling pads on the walls for acoustics and music stands that sagged under their own weight. The world of being a flute player meant being absolutely perfect every time you picked up your instrument, which is a dangerous lesson for girls, and we were almost all girls. But that year I scored 100. Perfect stage presence, I guess, so I went to Rochester, to AllState, and at AllState I won first chair. I didn't make friends that week, but not totally on purpose. The crush for friend-making and team-picking intimidated me, and being the best had turned me into a loner. I was self-conscious about being first chair, as if I somehow wore it on the outside and everybody hated me for it. I mean, they probably did hate me. We were all clamoring for the same thing, and none of us knew why. I spent most of my free time in the sky bridge that connected our hotel to the mall across the street. The mall that disappointed me because it had the same Hot Topics and Spencer's Gifts as the mall back home, because I didn't know yet that all malls were the same. I would sit there grumped over downtown Rochester, scribbling in a notebook, missing my boyfriend and my video games and my terrible poetry. When I did have to interact with them, I concentrated on sending out vibes that told people that I didn't care about chair rank, that I fucking hated John Philip Sousa, that I couldn't believe anybody took all of this so seriously. I knew the actual effect was that it made me intimidating and unapproachable, but I also know that being a flute player affected the way that I related to girls well into my 20s. Earlier that year, back at my high school, there was a girl, an absolutely incredible musician, and I beat her out for first chair even though I didn't want to compete. I hated competing, I only liked performing, but the conductor forced me, told me that I would fail if I didn't try out. The girl had a French name with a French spelling and the shiniest hair I had ever seen. You could smell her perfume just by looking at her, like all the smells tucked into the binding of a Vogue magazine. She was deeply religious, Catholic I think, and vocally committed to her virginity, and so of course, she was a terrific flirt. I used to imagine her diary entries. Dear Diary, I dreamed I was on stage and the second trumpet spanked me with a copy of Tess of the D'Urbervilles every time I made a mistake during the solo in L'après-midi d'une faune. Anyway, for the first chair audition, the conductor put the two of us, me and the French girl, behind a curtain and had us each play the same passage of that song that used to be in the beef commercial and let the band vote for who was better. We flipped a coin and I went first and I won cleanly, even though I wasn't expecting to. The next day, her mom was in the band director's office screaming, and it turned out her mom was actually French, and then the girl quit the band. I overheard the girl telling people that it was because she wanted to focus on playing piano instead. Later that year, the band performed Danny Boy because the conductor's wife had just given birth to his son Daniel, and there was a lengthy flute solo in it. He cried during the concert. It was embarrassing. I wonder sometimes if he forced me to audition so that he wouldn't have to listen to her perform the song he chose for his son. I think he hated her. I have a feeling she's out there somewhere right now telling someone that classical music is intellectually superior to pop music, and I bet she believes it because she thinks it gives her something from the outside that she doesn't know how to get from herself, something like what a chair assignment used to give her, something that will only last until the next time the world tries to tell her she's too fat or too loud or whatever fucking terrible things it tells women all the time. Me, I want to go back in time and tell her that keeping her virginity definitely wouldn't have made her a better flute player, and that it was okay what was in her diary, even if her mom read it while she was at orchestra rehearsal and came to her with tears in her eyes, asking what America had done to her little girl. I want to tell her that it was okay to want something for herself beyond being perfect and thin and chaste and an amazing musician with career goals at 17 years old. I want to go back to all of us girls who were told that 99.5% wasn't good enough. I want to make us herbal tea and have a sleepover where we all paint our nails and talk about the disgusting things in our diaries and how much we all fucking hate John Philip Sousa. I want us to say fuck it and stop getting graded, stop competing for chairs, stop climbing over each other and crying about auditions that went poorly. Here's the kicker about the AllState thing. After all of it, after all the years of competing, the endless auditions and half-point deductions, after the bus ride to Rochester and the week of 8-hour rehearsals with strung-out girls who cried in the bathroom during breaks, after all the stress and the tears of being a top-tier musician in New York State at 16, finally there was the concert, the supposed reason for all of the madness. We performed, and it went well. It was probably the biggest crowd that many of us had ever played for. Afterward, we went backstage to gather our things, and carefully pulling our instruments apart and packing them gingerly into their cases, hoisting all of our things onto our shoulders, we went out to greet our families. 3 strangers complimented my hair, and nobody mentioned my playing. So I guess my hair looked really awesome.